Okay, so today we're talking about how you want to set up to the ball. Your setup, it relates to ball position, distance from ball, all those types of things. They all kind of interrelated. And it can be very confusing and extremely, it's critical to consistent ball striking because the golf club's only a couple inches wide, you know, and if you're a couple inches off, you're really going to have to make some adjustments to find the ball. And that's what we see a lot. So this technique, one of my first mentors, Matt Clark, he's one of the first master professionals in America. He taught me this, and I've found this to be a wonderful, repetitive, very easy to learn technique to adjust, to set up to the ball. And it starts like this. You've placed your hands on the golf club. We've talked about the proper grip. We're on a tee here. Let's say, you know, the ball, whether you're on the fairway or wherever, the ball is always going to be stationary somewhere, right? So the question is, how do I know I'm in the right place? So this technique says that when you are, let's say you're on a tee here, you're going to stand here with your feet shoulder width apart. And when I say shoulder width apart, I mean the insides of your feet are on the outsides of your shoulders. So it's not like that. It's more like this, right? As far as your stance goes. The weight is in the balls of your feet. It's not in the heels, and it's not really in the toes. I'm kind of a middle linebacker or tennis player ready to receive a shot, a serve, something really, really, you're not going to get me off my ball. I'm really centered, weight's pretty much evenly distributed left to right. Okay, now from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand tall with the club parallel to the ground at my belt buckle height here, right? So not up here, just right here. Now from here, what you're going to do is you're going to bend from the hip down to the ground. Now when you do that, two things. Your rear end's up and out, and your chest is down, facing down towards the ball. Now and then from there, you're going to slightly flex your knees. And wherever that club hits the ground, ball needs to be right in front of that position, right in front of where that club is. So the whole idea is that you're able to find where the club, the bottom of that swing arc right there. So you're able to come in, hit the ball, then take your divot. So it takes the guessing out. It's no longer a guess about where I'm going to hit where I need to put the ball. And I can prove it to you because each club has a different length to it, and they change by half an inch. So 7-iron, 8-iron, and you'll notice it's a ½ inch longer, right? And that's how it works throughout the bag. So I've got a wedge, a 7-iron, and a hybrid. When I do my technique here, you will notice that these clubs are in different places on the ground, aren't they? Now, until you get used to this, I would suggest you kind of step away from the ball to begin with. Find the bottom of your swing arc, which is where that club's finding the ground, and then kind of shimmy your way into it, right? What you see a lot of times is people come in, their club's right here, the ball's there, and they just go like that. They just literally shift up. They don't keep everything in proportion. And that's really where you get in trouble. So regardless of the club in your hand, because they're all different lengths, and it's too much guesswork, we take the guesswork out of it by feet shoulder width apart, insides of the feet to the outsides of the shoulders, club parallel to the ground at our hip height, at our waist, bend down, rear end up, hips up or rear end out, chest down facing the ball, right? Then from there, we just shimmy into the ball. Now there's two more intersections which can help you to ensure that you're in the right place. Two geometric lines here that are critical to the proper alignment, proper setup here. And the first one is that you'll notice this club's along my toe line. Notice how my hands are right, hanging under my shoulders, but basically right in line with this golf club. It's not out here, it's not out here, and it's not in here, right? So once you go through this process, then you can double check it by looking down and say, okay, are my hands in line with my toe line? Yes, they are. Then the second one is that the shaft here if I were to extend it, it would go in through my belt buckle and out my lower back. A lot of times you'll see folks with the shaft up here, which would get the club up into the rib cage, no good, and or down there too low. So when you cross-reference your hands in line with your toes, and then the shaft of the club entering your kind of right below your navel and exiting your lower back, then you know you're in the right place. Another way you can do it is, a lot of times you'll see guys start with their legs together and then split from there. But it's the same thing. The hands are in line with the toes, club face through the belt buckle. And you'll notice if I take my hybrid, all I did was change the club. Notice how different the club, where the 7-iron was here and this club's here, right? And look how much further out in front and further away from my body the club is. But my hands are still in the same place and the shaft is still in the same place, right? The length of the shaft is what dictated that. So I think where I see a lot of people struggle is that they don't know where the proper ball position is, and you're not going to have consistent contact if your ball position's all over the place, right? So it just shows you how important it is. You take the guesswork out when you do what I'm talking about. You literally stand up here, you put the club down on the ground, and that's where the ball needs to be. The ball needs to be right in front of there. So if I'm here, okay, and I'm just going to shimmy up here to the ball right here. People tend to get really tucked in with their lower back. They're kind of hip locked, which restricts the rotation, the coil back and through. But essentially you really need to get your hips up and out and not tucked under. You don't want this. There's two more pieces I wanted to share as far as the pre-shot setup before we start the actual golf swing. And the first would be this concept of a secondary spine angle tilt, which is you've got this angle, this spine angle tilt, right? Tour average is 36 degrees. And the other thing is this secondary spine angle tilt. And it bends this way to the right a little bit, depending. The further the ball goes forward, the more on a tee, the more spine tilt secondary spine tilt we're going to have. But for these irons and clubs off the ground, just a slight tilt to the right shoulder lower than the left. Part of that's because the right hand's underneath the left hand, so therefore literally it's probably pulling you down a little bit. But it also helps to mimic the impact position. Where this is definitely, in this type of an orientation, you're not hitting the club with your shoulder square. And then related to that would be, as far as your feet, we talked about width of stance, but as far as the placement of your feet, the right foot is definitely, you want that squared off. You're not going to want it inwards, and you probably aren't, if you have it outwards, you're going to be tended to more sway and kind of get outside your knee, and you don't want that. So we square off the right leg. And then this is a personal preference, but the left foot, you'll see, especially a lot of good players, they tend to flare that left foot open 30, 40 degrees. And why? Why is that? Well, when you're rotating through the ball, if this left foot is squared off, it's kind of counterintuitive, and it's restricting the hip from rotating open. So again, it's more the secondary spine angle, and the left foot opening is more of a, getting into more of an impact or at a duress. It just it makes it a little bit easier to get there and kind of get out of your own way. And that's about it for the setup. So just to review what we talked about today, and we're going to talk about a pre-shot routine, which is critical, in a different video. But basically, if I have an imaginary line back here, when I cross that line, my ball's going to be in the air, let's say 12, 14 seconds after I cross that line. And I want to have a repeatable method that I have that gets me out of my mind, so I'm able to perform and not worry about the outcome or whatever, thinking about all this other stuff. So all I'm thinking about is my target. And when I cross the line, I might not even be looking at my ball. I might be looking at a spot between my target and the ball and my target, maybe a couple feet out here, and that's where I'm trying to align my club face to. So I might come out here, take a look. Set myself down, check my alignment, make sure my hands are in the right place, my weight's right, take a look at the target, get settled, take one more look at the target, and then almost like as my eyes are coming back, the club's going back before I come back and stand over the ball and, you know what I mean? You want to stay loose, you want to stay moving. That was crushed. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. And as we launch this new channel, we really appreciate your likes and your subscribes and comments as well. Thank you very much.